difference here. We're trying to make money. There's the what. There's the what. The pounds per day of stuff at the same point in time that we measured this amount of energy is what? The more stuff I can produce per unit of energy, the more money I'm going to make. It's that simple. It is that simple. The constraint on my ability to make money, with all due respect to the accountants in the room, the constraint on my ability to make money is this numerator. That's all the energy I've got. That's it. We're done. This is the thing that makes me the money. And my task is to make as much money with as little energy as possible. And you say, that's kind of stupid. No, very fundamental. There's a body of literature called Calculus of Variations. In the Calculus of Variations, which is elegant, there's one of the classic problems in the calculus is a thing called the brachistochrone problem. The brachistochrone problem is the problem that you take a ball up here, and the task is for it to end up over there. And it doesn't much matter where over there is, but you specify. Here it is to start with. Over there is where it is when it ends up. The question in this classic problem, and it is a classic problem, it is just one of the fundamental problems in the physics. What path? You say, well, just drop it and it's going to go. No. That wasn't the question I asked you. I said, it's here and I want it over there. Not here and I want it there, because that's the easy problem. Blank, and it falls on the ground. What path should this ball follow going from here to over there that minimizes the amount of energy consumed? Whoa, that's a funky problem. Or it is. It's a very funky problem. But it really raises the point. Mother Nature, by her nature, is lazy. Pure and simple. Mother Nature is categorically, unmitigatedly lazy. Anything Mother Nature can do to reduce the amount of energy consumed, she will do it. Period. All paths that are driven by Mother Nature are in and of themselves minimum energy paths. And that's what this brachistochrone problem is all about. Well, that said then, my task is to make that happen. And here's the metric that I'm going to use. Well, look. Delta P over Q rho is that thing I referred to as the reciprocal productivity index. See it? There it is, right there. It is a measure of the amount of energy consumed divided by that which consumes the energy. Okay? Units. Well, this is pressure times density divided by viscosity. So you can do those units. Units here are cubic feet or cubic yards or cubic meters or whatever kind of volume units you want to use per unit of time, hours, days, seconds, centuries, whatever, times density. Those are the units of this thing I'm going to refer to as RPI. And now you can go do the units conversions yourself. But there's the units converted to get all that stuff dimensionless. Darcy said that I had this transmissibility term in here. There's no transmissibility there. The viscosity's gone. No. The viscosity is hidden inside here, right? Because I want to deal with this thermodynamics concept. So this is transmissibility, realizing that the viscosity is embedded in this. Now, this goes back to the question that was raised a bit ago, and we've wrestled with. When I look at the behavior of this system, what is that thickness? Oh my gosh. Will he never quit? I hope not. Well, I have to quit someday. What is that thickness? There you have it. It's floating right out there. What is that thickness? Oh, that's not fair. I haven't had my coffee yet. I can't think there. No, don't go me. Yep, I'm sorry. We're going to take a break shortly. There's hope. The light at the end of the tunnel is not blowing its whistle. What is that thickness?
The height of the cord.
Is it?
Is it what's communicating? It'll communicate.
I didn't ask for questions. I asked for statements.
It's the portal.
I got 2 questions. Don't give me questions. And then when you answer the question, answer it as if you mean it. Yeah. I think it's that. Now wait, this thing. Do any of you have such good communication with Mother Nature that you can tell her anything that has porosity crossover is that rock which is going to have flow through it? How many of you have that good a communication? Let me see your hands. Oh, same number as me. Huh. How about gamma ray? Well, this is really strong gamma ray through here, so this is the rock that flows the current through. Mother Nature, oh, you dial the phone number. Can I borrow your cell phone a minute, please? Mother Nature, I have determined after vast investigation, careful study, and I got a pile higher and deeper to boot. Oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter, huh? You're right, it doesn't matter. Because Mother Nature is going to allow flow to occur wherever it is the path of least resistance. Mother Nature is fundamentally lazy. And therefore, flow only occurs where the path of least resistance exists. So, this product is a measure of those areas in the system where the path of least resistance exists. Oh, crud. I've just confronted, I just run right head on into this issue, that I could imagine that as the well ages, the path of least resistance is going to change, not just in character, but in location. Wow, that's heavy. Well, why is that important? We're just there. We're halfway through our well testing class. Yeah, I know you are. But stop and think about what I just told you. That has compelling consequences to your ability to make money. Because if where the rock produces, where the hydrocarbons, the money flows, change as the well ages, that has compelling impact on how you manage and complete it. So it ain't like it's just some kind of theory stuff. It has dollar consequences to it. All right? So this is not necessarily the thickness of the reservoir, although it very likely is for a while, but it is not necessarily so. All right? It is simply that thickness that represents the path of least resistance at that point in time.
So how do you determine that?
You don't. The best you can hope to do is see how it changes. Because we, honestly, other than a spinner, or a temperature log or a noise log, we don't really have tools that permit us to see where the flow field is in the far field. But we do have a tool that permits us to at least assess the product. Okay? Because that's what we're going to measure, is the product of those two numbers, which raises a very important point. Do I really need to know what that thickness is? And my thesis to you is, I'd kind of like to know it, but it's not crucial to know it. I mean, it could be very valuable to me to have a sense about how thick it is. The truth of the matter is, when I'm looking at the performance of well A and comparing it to well B, arguably I don't need to know that number. What I need to know is, in terms of reservoir quality, the product, is this one better than that? So the question that was posed is, how do I know what that thickness is? And my response is, I don't know that I need to know it. It's interesting, and it's exactly what all of the petrophysicists do all their daily work with. But unfortunately, my observation has come the other way around. I don't know that I could actually come up with the true number, and therefore maybe I don't have to worry about it. Okay? You okay with this? In light of that statement right there, the question raises itself about when should I observe? I mean, what is this variable right here? Well, that's tea. It's tea time. Did anybody bring the crumpets? No, we're in the Scots here. None of those crumpets. Only those weirdos down in London do crumpets. Never mind. Yeah, well, that was a bad joke too. But I got your attention, didn't I? Ha! Pulled a good trick on you. Since the question that raises itself is this matter of time, then it obviously raises a question of when. When should I make observations? Right? I mean, the Rush Limbaugh gig about stuttering all the time. That's so fake. Anyway, doesn't matter. When should I measure what? Or what should I measure when? My thesis to you has been that I wish to understand how energy is consumed by the system. So I am interested in understanding what it is consumes energy, right? Well, that statement really is that I need to observe the pressures at a known location, preferably but not necessarily at the same location, elevation-wise, wellhead, bottom hole, somewhere up midway, whatever, but just tell me where it is so I can move it to the right place, all right? So I need to know the pressures someplace. I would like to know, but it's not terribly crucial, I would like to know the temperature and how it might change. Because I've made the assertion to you that many of these systems are not constant temperature. Okay? So that becomes a variable. If you have reason to suspect that the system is not constant temperature, then you'd be wise to measure the temperature as well. All right? So that's the stuff that goes in the numerator. In the denominator, density of water is 60-ish pounds per cubic foot. Oil is 40 to 50-ish pounds per cubic foot. Gas is something in the neighborhood of 0.02 to 3 or 4 pounds per cubic foot. So the bottom line is that which is the most dense is probably the variable I actually need to have the best. Holy crap. Pardon me. And I mean that in the most serious. Really. Many operators, because they do not perceive that water is important, don't even measure it. And yet, right there, when you look at it in this other perspective, I've got a good measure of how the system is consuming its energy, but I do not have a good measure of what is consuming the energy, simply because I didn't measure it. I can give you a very specific case. Somebody asked me, well, can you put this into dollar terms? Yeah, I can. One of my clients refused, one of my clients refused to measure their water production. No, we don't have to measure it. The state doesn't require it. We are not going to do it. And I said, well, now here's the consequence. About 18 months ago, well, actually by now it was about 20 months ago, I had gone through my tirade about this water production question, and the business unit vice president was gutsy enough to stand up and say, thou shalt. So what he did was he had one team of 50 wells administered by one production group, do business as usual. Don't change anything. You're not allowed to talk to these other people. You don't even know them. In fact, they didn't know each other. The other team was a group of people in the same presentation where I carried on about water production and pressure and all that stuff. Boy, they disagreed with me. I mean, they were in my face. You know, you're wrong. You don't know what you're doing. Yeah, okay, fine. This is what I've seen, but that's okay. The business unit vice president told them, do business like you were told. Whether you agree with him or not, do it that way. And so business unit B had 50 wells. Business unit A had 50 wells. A was to do business as usual. B was to do it the way this weirdo said to do it. At the end of the 18 months, the two teams came back together and had a third party, the actual in-house reserve audit team, review the performance of the two groups of wells, comparing Group A against Group B. The consequence of that result, Group B's wells, on average, Group B's wells wells were worth $9 million per well, more valuable than Group A. 9 million times 50. See, that's 90 million times 5. $500 million incremental uplift by doing what that weird goofball said to do. One item of which was measure the water. Well, that's important because it's a major component of the energy consumption in the system. So, just because I shut one eye doesn't mean that I'm looking at the world correctly. That's that gets tiresome, won't it? Yeah. My point is, here I've got it's so simple. Water's density is 60 pounds, oil's density is 50, and gas is 10 or 2, whatever. The most important component of this whole system is the water. We are not petroleum engineers. I mean, when you look at it, really try to look at it from that perspective, we're not petroleum engineers. We're water engineers who hopefully, coincidentally, make enough oil and gas to make it worth our while to study the water. I mean, that's how it is. Yeah, I know that's totally backwards. Because when I do a buildup, I'm going to look at the buildup as if it had gas properties or oil properties. But in fact, the thing that is the most important component of this study is the water. The second most is the oil, because of its density. And the third, actually, is the gas. Now, that raises an important question. I guarantee you, when you get out into the cold, cruel world, your company, on some of your properties, will not measure the gas. Oh, we don't need to measure the gas. We don't sell the gas, so we don't measure it. We use it for lease use. Wait a minute. What is the GOR of a well that produces no gas? Duh, it's 0. But what are the fluid properties of an oil that contains no gas? Well, a gasless oil typically has a viscosity of around 100 centipoise, and in Canada it is referred to as the tar sands, because that's basically what it is. That's the condition of oil once it's been completely degasified. So I'm confronted with the fact that most, well, 99.99%, except the tar sands and the oil shales, obviously, oil absolutely has to have a gas volume associated with it. Therefore, for somebody to fail to report the gas, just because it's not important, don't move or I'll shoot. Dang it, you moved. Now what do I do? I got a problem. The point I really want you to walk away with, it is crucial to understand the volumes of all three phases. Now, that is not sufficient either, actually. If you are looking at the performance of a well immediately after a large frac job, it's not uncommon that you will literally be producing hundreds of pounds of proppant. That ought to be part of that denominator. Gloves, dead rabbits, 2x4s, proppant, oil, gas, water, anything that contributes to the mass rate from the system should be measured. Okay? So it's not just the gas or the water or the oil, no. It is anything that is consuming energy in the flow path of that system. All right? So it really is, it's a much broader question. And it really becomes a rather challenging question because, like I said, some operators don't bother because they didn't think it was important. And I'm telling you, and I cite that example about the $90 million uplift, it's important. It's crucially important. It is value added that I can guarantee you, you'll win your first year's you'll win your first year's paycheck in a matter of minutes. A good example of that. In one of the investigations I got to do was a lawsuit in which the client had assumed that his property was essentially valueless. But he was actually being sued for some other issues. And as it turned out, he had decided that this property was valueless, and so he was, hey, what do? I walk. At that point, he had already spent $600,000 in legal fees. Woo! And he had a lot deeper pocket than I did. He'd already spent that much money on something he thought was worthless. Well, that's part of why he thought it was worthless. We went through the lawsuit, and at the end of the lawsuit, the sheriff came up to me, and I thought, oh my, what have I done now? Where did I park that I shouldn't have? The sheriff actually came up to me at the end of the lawsuit, and he said, you just made him a wealthy man. What? I mean, for one thing, the sheriff had set in, because in this particular place, the sheriff would always sit in on matters that were relatively contentious, and it was perceived that this one was. So he kind of had this experience issue, and he said, you just convinced them that this was extremely valuable. The jury came back. My friend expected to have lost the $600,000 plus the property. The jury came back with a settlement of $214 million in his favor and transferred the property back to him as a consequence of the decision. Yeah, this whole thing, that whole transaction took 48 hours. That 48 hours was worth $200 and some odd million plus the value of the property. Damn, pardon my profanity. Why? What made it? This. That right there. The understanding about the way the system consumed its energy. So it's not like I was trying to blow a bunch of theory at you, because I am. I admit it, I am. No question. But there is economic consequence to the theory. And when it's got that many zeros in front of the decimal point, you kind of go, okay, I guess maybe I ought to think about staying in tune. All right, with that, not, okay. Turn it back on, that'll make it work faster. Oh, no! Ah! Hope nobody's in the next room. Can I really scream loud? This is this right here, this concept of dimensionless time. This is absolutely, unconditionally, without any reservation, the worst concept in all of petroleum, water, / whatever engineering. Anybody in here understand dimensionless time? Yeah. Not sure I do. What the heck is it? Well, let me give you an analogy first. Back in a prior life, don't you look up. We were proud parents of 2 kids. In that prior life, I had been the proud owner of a Porsche 911. Gorgeous blue thing, Targa, cool. I mean, I could outrun just about anybody on the road. Not that I tried to necessarily, but I knew I could. Damn, that was a sweet car. Then along came, and the spouse unit advised her husband of his rights. And his rights included not having a Porsche, and so he traded the Porsche for a Suburban. But you got a guilt trip going up here. Yeah, well, why do I tell you this story? Well, the Porsche, I mean, you know what a Porsche is. It's a 2-passenger car that will go ridiculously fast. Huh? Oh, I agree. I have no problem with that idea. On the other hand, this is a Suburban that will carry 7 passengers in great comfort. It's a diesel, so 55 miles an hour is pushing it. What the heck's that got to do with dimension? Well, that's what dimensionless time's all about, actually. Look, in the numerator, I've got this K thing, a conductivity. Kind of something sort of like speed, because there's time there. So the numerator is a measure of the speed. Look at the denominator. There's a porosity, there's a compressibility, and there's an area. Yeah, so that's kind of like sort of a volume thing. My Porsche goes really fast and doesn't carry very many people. My Suburban carries lots of people and doesn't go very fast. Whoa. Yeah, that's understand what that is. That's what this is. This is a measure of the speed, quote mark, of the system compared to the volume of the system. Huh. Well, okay, let's do an experiment. By Friday, I have to have all of you in Albuquerque. Okay? So, if I have the Porsche, I'm going to drive really fast and take one of you at a time. Right? I've got a specific frame of time. I've got a specific time frame, and my Porsche has a certain conductivity, KH, right? But it has squat for porosity. Yeah? The porosity of my Porsche is 2. Yeah? The conductivity of my Porsche is about 180. Because somebody removed the governor on the engine. Don't ask. On the other hand, I could do this same thing with my Suburban. And the conductivity of my Suburban is, well, because the wind's out of the south, I can go north at 60, but when I come back, it's only going to be 45. Yeah? But the porosity of my Suburban, if a couple of you will sit in the back behind the seat, it's probably 9 or 10 people. It's got awesome porosity, but crap for conductivity. So, since my goal is to do a specific thing by a specific time, well, let's put this back in reservoir terms. How long does it take this pressure wave to move from the well bore to the wall? That's a specific statement. That's a goal statement. It's a legitimate goal statement. That goal statement, just like with my 2 cars, I've specified the time. If I know the reservoir quality and the volume, I've just measured in exactly the same way as my Porsche and my Suburban, the dimensionless time of the system. That's pretty cool. That kind of puts it in a framework where I can get my hands around it and think, oh, my head's not going to blow apart. I'm going to get a migraine, but it's not going to blow apart. Because the physics of the system govern when I accomplish the goal of moving the pressure wave from the well to the wall, or the 50 people to Albuquerque. You see that? Does that kind of make some sense? So what? Well, the so what is this. In this relationship, in both of these, that C2 times T is that. It's dimensionless time. It's the measure of a specific goal and specific sets of properties of the conductivity, speed, and storativity, volume of the system. Precisely the same animal. That's not such a hard thing to get your arms around. Kind of a crude analogy, if you please, because I never thought about my... never mind. Anyway. Now, it's not without some liabilities. The traditional definition, see these things over here in green? I kind of didn't talk about them. Why didn't I talk about them? Because I wanted to ignore them. In the traditional definition of dimensionless time, I've got a units conversion factor, permeability, time, and all this stuff in the denominator. And no thicknesses. We've already come to wrestle with in the concept of dimensionless pressure, and in our conversations this morning, with the understanding that that's not the problem. The problem is that I have a conductivity because I don't really know the thickness. I don't know the thickness associated with the flow. So the best I can hope to do is measure the product of the two. Well, that means that I'm stuck with a different understanding of a denominator. The volume associated with where the energy is stored is as important as the understanding of what consumes the energy. See that? Our conversation a while ago about the 3 different thicknesses really comes to play right here. Where did I learn this lesson? I got to tell you, it's very specific. When you look on your map, you will find Torres del Paine. Torres del Paine is one of the most beautiful mountain peaks I've ever seen. We got to fly over it on a clear day. It was so neat because we were looking down like an idiot. My camera was in the hold of the airplane. What a stupid thing to do. But it was so cool because off the top of the mountain, there must have been 5 different colors of glaciers. I was always in the picture, I had the middle picture that glaciers were white. Glaciers are white because they're made of ice. End of story. Go home. A blue one, a green one, a yellow one, a red one, and a white one. Wow. And I couldn't take a picture. What an idiot. Well, see, never mind. Anyway, we flew right over Torres del Paine, landed at Punta Arenas in Chile, and then went across to Terra del Fuego. By the way, do you know why Terra del Fuego is named Terra del Fuego? Spanish, terra, land, dig, of, fuego, fire, land of fire. Why would they name it land of fire? Well, there's a lot of lightning down there. No, come on. No, not volcanoes. Because the oil and gas were flowing out of the ground and lightning had ignited them. And you can see huge areas, I mean areas 10 times the size of this room that had fire burning in. There's cinders, you know, the fires have gone out because they're producing the oil and gas now. But 100 years ago, there were fires down there that persisted year-round and had obviously persisted for centuries. That's why it was named Terra del Fuego, was because of the fires